It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Even though we got a bunch of, they're trying to make us fear, we're not feared because we're not feared. It's a choice to be not feared. I'm just, the news over the last few days, us getting back from Central America, Puerto Vallarta, Panama, coming in and inundated with war and rumors of wars, and we got to have more, and oh my God, and stuff. Damn it. Now I'm looking forward to talking to James Corbett on solutions. Yeah, we get some solutions. I need some solutions. James, we got some solutions. What do you think? Whoa, I don't hear you. Are you muted? Yeah, you're muted.
Yes, I am, because I am a professional.
Well, this is the kind of why we're here, to explain, give a perspective, kind of truth, justice, and, the, I don't know, if not American way, the way. And what is it that you want people to know and have a fundamental understanding of to be able to navigate through what's coming right, not later?
Yeah. Excellent question. And we can break this down on so many different levels and scales. And I guess we could start with sort of the immediate brass tacks of what is happening right now. And I don't know what it's like in the U.S., but certainly here in Japan, we are relatively concerned, as you like to say, about a number of things, including what is one of the top stories right now, of course, the economic effects of war that's happening halfway around the globe and the knock-on effects of that as Asia starts going through an energy supply crunch and gas prices and other things start reflecting that. But, we could talk about the practical level of what people can do monetarily, et cetera, to prepare themselves. But beyond that scope, obviously, there's the larger question of war more generally as it starts to take shape. And then there's the larger question of what comes through all of this on the other side, which is perhaps the question that actually matters at the base level at the end of the day for all of this. Exactly right. Yeah. So what's your take on, obviously everyone's talking about Iran war, but what's your take on what is the transformative event that we're living through? What's the meaning of it?
Trigger's been pulled. You always knew. You could see all the targets lined up. You could see them raising their rifle. Yeah, they let you look through the scope. They got scopes. Ooh, we're looking at the scope of the Chinese surveillance of whatever. Look, it's in the crosshairs of the U.S. We could if we have to do. And it's just you know what's coming. You know why. You know how. You know what. What if you knew? That was the theme of my presentation in Acapulco, and it was, what if you knew? Occupy the Land was why I was there, but that was only like 20% of it. I'm going, you need to understand why, and I tell you why, and I started, from the beginning of acting, kind of just hit it, really hard on a bunch of graphics, but the bottom line was, what if you knew? What if you knew? Well, now...
What would you do if you knew all the things we knew? Yeah. Did you check out that Paris song?
Did I check out the what?
The Paris song that I recommended last time.
Well, obviously not, because I don't remember, that.
You noted it down. I watched you write it down. Anyway.
The Paris song. I remember you doing something. Let's see if I got it on this piece of paper. Well, that was weeks ago, man. What the hell? I'm supposed to remember this?
Sorry. Putting you on the spot there.
Just send it to me again. I'll send it to Don. I'll get it. I think I sent it to be put up and thought I'd see it, but I can't even read my site myself. I'm out here building, root cellars, trying to supply. That's a good point. What if you knew? And I go to there, I go, here, when I became active in the 90s, it's the financial crash, the savings and loans thing, Iraq War I, Ruby Ridge, Waco, Oklahoma City, 9/11. I mean, I can't go. They're overlapping. I mean, what if you knew? Then what? Well, you're here at Acapulco, you talk all these people days and days and days. Wow, you're educated, and Professor Corbett done told you everything, got the video. Now what? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I don't want to hear your whining little bitch and whine. We're going to vote harder. I don't want to, I mean, I'm so sick of it. So when I last night I went on Union of the Unwanted, which is, a channel that has a lot of people that have been deplatformed and so on and everything. And you and I have been on there before and so on. And I just, just clicked on the invitation. I just wanted to go check out what's up. And I got to talk about our Philosophy of Liberty project. We'll talk about it a little bit. But it was the same old thing. They're doing this and they need to, and they're bad and look, new guys being bad and Epstein files are bad. And I'm going, you didn't know this? What if you knew? Then what? What do you say you're doing here? What are you serving the people with a perspective and information, solutions? I don't need any more tragedy war porn. I get it. I'm good. I'm done. Ernie, look at why? So they're bad. Bad guys doing bad stuff they know is bad. That's evil. I mean, they're evil. Freedom of government, bad. I get it. Now freaking what? So this is why I enjoy having this conversation with you, James, because, not only do you know, not only have you shared, not only do you detail, therefore there are solutions. Well, what's yours? I didn't even look today. I had 3 other shows did today. It's the 4th one. I'm in the chair all day talking about various different things and solutions and how to go. Dan Dix, kind of solutions. Also he's living in Canada. I mean, crap that's going on there. But I am tired. I'm just tired of negative waves. Freedom's Phoenix has just been from the ashes of Lady Liberty's torch. Freedom's rebirth, Freedom's Phoenix. And we have a lot of good stuff up there, but you got to put up the tragedy porn. And then, I'll turn it to you after this. I want to make this point. Trump appointed Erica Kirk, head of the Air Force Academy's moral center of what you got to do crap, and I've done 4 shows over the last decade and a half or so. There was a legacy family that Air Force Academy, grandpa, dad, son, daughter, it was a thing. And they came on warning of this. They're saying, look, the mantra that they're giving, the indoctrination they're doing these pilots is that you're God's angels raining hellfire down on the, heathens of something, and it's just little puffs of smoke and little baby body parts at the Arab wedding in the backyard of where, don't worry about it. You're God's angels kind of thing. And it's war. And he was warning of this. He's going, look, man, I want you to know. So I included in that story the links to those shows that I had done on this saying, look, Erica Kirk, why? Well, she's replacing, the influence of Charlie Kirk. I don't think Charlie would have done it, so she's there doing that. And for whom? Israel! It's so bad. So I need to know. That's my take. And it doesn't matter, and I don't care, because, we got to start taking care of business on our own, and the tech is there for us to do it. What do you think of all this stuff? and China is, not getting their oil, so here it comes.
Yeah.
And the Yom Kippur War, which was, I don't know, a few weeks or something, oil quadrupled back then. So what's going to happen now? And so Donna went and filled up all our diesel tanks and gasoline and whatever, and we're on the land, and I don't know how long we can last, but we're going to wait it out. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about there, isn't there? And I guess my first initial reaction is what I talked about, actually, what just recorded this week's New World Next Week with Pilato. And at the end of the segment on the Iran war oil updates that we were doing, I made the point that, of course, there is sort of what is happening on the 2D geopolitical chessboard with the different nation states and the sides, and we can examine that. But that, if we stop there, then we've lost, because obviously this is about the bigger three-dimensional game that's going on, where it's, of course, all of these oligarchs who seek to rule over humanity versus humanity, right? And if we don't keep that perspective in mind, then we risk getting sucked into their game and playing it on their level, and we always lose that game because they're making up the rules as they go. And what you were saying there earlier actually put me in mind of, because my initial reaction to you saying that, okay, yes, we know, who cares, is I want to say, well, but Ernie, I mean, imagine if you were living there in 1939, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, if you were there in the midst of World War II. It's not like you could just say, who cares, World War, whatever. The bigger point is, but that made me think of Hayek, because you'll know The Road to Serfdom was came out anyway. It was published in 1944. So right at the pinnacle, the height of World War II, all of that going on, and Hayek writes this book that says, no, guys, you don't get it. The British Marxists were, complaining that Nazism was, the capitalist reaction to socialism, right? So we're going to have to form some sort of, wonderful Marxist utopia after this is all done. And Hayek's coming out in the height of this war hysteria and saying, no, guys, you don't get it. They're both Nazism and socialism and Marxism, they're both sides of the same coin. It is central economic planning, and that is the ruin of society. We have to move away from that direction. He was out there, getting ahead of the post-war conversation.
Yeah.
And took the heat. And I haven't read that book for, I want to say, a couple decades. I think I read that book before I ever even got into the website, if I remember correctly. So I should really reread that book, because it probably speaks to what we are going through, and perhaps what the right reaction to these types of war-type scenarios is to keep in mind what the bigger struggle is about. Because in the end, they're going to, whatever happens, in whatever smoking rubble hole you have left at the end of whatever warfare takes place, they're going to start to tell you that, well, now, of course, now we need the global government with the global digital ID and everything.
They're going to have their solution, I guarantee it.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to be against that before it happens.
I remember we did a, God, when was it? I remember it was when McAfee was running for president, Libertarian, because we were at Orlando National Convention, and we had brought all these signs, and we were going around everywhere, and it was a rollout thing, and it's from antiwar.com. We were pimping it, and it says, "I'm already against the next war," whichever that one is, And that's why when we did on war, you'll see, there's all kinds of war on Freedom's Phoenix. I was just showing it. And where we put up the war category, there is a war category. Well, what did we call it? We called it That War. That War, or something like that. And they go, "Why did you do that?" I go, "Yeah, because it's always that war, the next one. It's never, they're overlapping. It's the mechanism by
we were
which
talking about this last year sometime. We were floating around some kind of concept, nuclear war, comply no more, or some way
nuclear war, comply no more. I see a mushroom cloud, try and get another dime out of me. So that was one of the, we're trying to come up with something. One of the listeners sent that nuclear war, comply no more, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. We'll do that. And so that I'm just waiting. Make my day. We're done, and you're done. So I see. And that's what Dan Dix and I were talking about today too. is what's the mechanism by which they pull the trigger? And it's bank holidays. You got the wrong script. It's the not central bank digital currency.
Yeah.
And whatever they call it, it's going to be not digital currency that they'll program. But the I don't know the progression of what's going to happen first, but I know that it's going to be a food thing. It's always going to come down to a food thing, and it's going to be, you want to buy food, you got to totally agree. You got to get your purple script money, and you do. And this money, it's still, you have the 20, the 10, the 5, whatever, Monopoly colors. That's the hue that they got on U.S. currency. It's the same as the Monopoly money. Did you ever see that graphic?
I think I might have, but I haven't seen it in a while. Yeah, I should look at it.
It's just, it's like they're doinking us, man.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for the solution. Let's talk about Libertas.
Yeah.
Libertas is the root word for liberty in Latin.
Yeah.
So this is what we did. Now, we talked about, James and I had planned on doing this like December, early in November, December or something. We didn't want to fight holidays, everybody's holiday in and so on. So we kind of slow burn, getting it done, getting the artwork, getting the concept done, and finding a site name and domain and whatever, libertas.earth, Liberty Earth. I'm good with that. So we'll get the colors down and different things, but we have this video. The philosophy of liberty is about self-ownership. We've used this over the decades, and it's translated into at least 48 languages. So when you go in, like Afrikaans, they got everything, Chinese, Pakistani, Nepalese, whatever. And you have the thumbnail there. You can get access to the IPFS to where it can't be deleted or censored. And on each one of these languages, activists from around the world, and I got the site scrunched up here to fit on this, so it doesn't necessarily look this way, but what happens is when they do something, like with the Ron Paul Lovolution, all of the creative things that were done, all of the artwork, all the memes, all the short videos, this is just a spark. This is to get it going, to use worldwide that we demonstrate, like Road to Serfdom, like, We to Living, like Atlas Shrugged, like, all these various different books that are on the same theme. You own yourself. You're not born a freaking slave. You're not a serf. You're not in shackles. You're not, get out there and get some. Well, what happens is, if you have something that you can share that with, we'll do it. And people that are creative and do other things, oh my God, AI, people getting really creative, then we'll put it on each language's page, that people that do this around the world. So that's what we're looking for, is to be able to spark activism that I've done. This is, how I do it. You create a worldwide, spontaneous order, no central plan for freedom kind of thing, and you just got to count on humanity stepping up to the plate, because they don't want to go extinct. That's just the way it always is. But those are going to come after it. So we had to do it in a format that was available. It couldn't be censored or deleted. Now, I met with Ray, the founder of BitChute in Mexico, and he has been so censored and attacked by the United Kingdom that he is, and I just want to show you all of the languages. Language. It's, Ukrainian, Vietnamese, Turkish, Thai, Swedish, Spanish, Greek, German. Seriously, okay? This is going to be worldwide if they can suck it. So when I talked to Ray from BitChute, he is all over it. He's like, yep, we'll feature it on BitChute. So the first one's that content safe, and Matt putting it on is BitChute. Now we'll put it on, Rumble and Odyssey and, whatever, I don't care. But BitChute, because they have been under attack since he began it, because he knew the censorship was coming. He creates BitChute. Then the United Kingdom cancel all their bank accounts. You're not allowed. You can't get BitChute in UK. Yeah, screw them. So he moves to Thailand. He's like Brock is what? Vietnam? And I'm going, We just put up a story, I think it was yesterday or the day before, on Freedom's Phoenix, the top 10 great cheap places to live, and Thailand and Vietnam were in the top 3. So I'm going, woo, if I didn't have, grandkids, I might be going somewhere else. Now, this project is going to slow burn. We're going to launch it, Beware the Ides of March, which is this weekend. We're far enough along on it that, I can show you something. But after they get it all done, then I'll change everything. That's just what I do. I go, nope, get it all, put it up there. Then, I like this color, and move the bed over there and put the dresser over there. I mean, I go out and change stuff. But once that's done, we are going to be promoting it worldwide. I got a lot of people around the world going to be doing this. It's not going to be immediate, the impact. It's going to be the impact of they, them, those that don't like it. They attack this video. They do not want you, any culture, any religion, anybody around. This is universal. I own myself. And if you don't, then who does? And that right there, they do not want that getting out, or they want to con you into they rule you. So here we go. It's going to be fun. Get on for the ride. I'm just, once again, to show you there's solutions. There's always a solution. You just got to be creative. What is the solution? General public opinion. About what? That they own themselves. They're not the Borg. You don't got to, resistance is not futile. Do something. I'm just so sick of this. Trump is the deep state, are controlled by it, or what? There is no voting harder solution. Now, James, I want you to talk about your most recent. I watched this and I was like, "Yep." Not that I didn't know a lot of this stuff, but damn, you put stuff together so well. I want you to kind of skip to the end and talk about your Meet the Ellisons, Zionists, technocrats, moguls, or whatever, and it's a father, and here comes the next generation, next son, and it's like, and we got Soros and son, we got, I don't know, Clintons and Chelsea. I mean, this is going next generation, and something's got to break. Explain what you were warning us about.
Yeah, well, it occurred to me in my research over the past few years, everyone knows about, Elon Musk and some of these other deep state big tech stooges, Mark Zuckerberg and what have you, and their various connections to the intelligence agencies. But one that you don't hear a lot about is Larry Ellison. And I thought that was interesting because he's definitely a big player in that space. And, Forbes rich list, take it for what it's worth, but was at some point the richest man on the planet, according to Forbes last year, and is still up there, I think, 6th most as
Why?
of today.
What does he do? Where did all his money come from?
Great question. Yeah. So if people watch, they can get the blow-by-blow of it. But essentially, he was a 2-time college dropout who eventually ended up in computer programming, and in the 1970s was doing I believe he was doing contract work for Ampex Corporation, which has its own storied history. But at that time, Ampex was working on a project for the CIA called Project Oracle, and it was about a mass storage system and how, at that time, databases as we know them didn't exist. And so the question was, how can you create some sort of user-friendly interface between the user and a storage system with all this information, all this data? Because back in the day, you would have to know how the data was physically stored on a system in order to properly access it, and that was just obviously ridiculous. So there was this budding field called relational databases. Long story short, Ellison sort of jumped on that, took a couple of people that he was working with. They started their own company, and lo and behold, their very first customer, of course, ended up being the CIA. So they ended up naming their signature product the Oracle database, after that Project Oracle that the CIA was working on. And CIA was their first and best customer, still obviously connected with Oracle. And over the decades, they built up their chops, as it were, as a database company, and working with SQL databases. Since the last couple of years, of course, Ellison has been steering Oracle in a different direction, and now they are they are running the data centers that all these AI companies are using. So essentially, they're now more acting as a landlord than as anything else. And it's based on that we've had this crazy run up in his profit. But basically, long story short, yeah, he's been connected at the hip with the deep state since his inception. And of course, he turns out to be a committed Zionist who has been working on the behalf of Israel and funding Israeli Defense Force and Friends of the IDF, and personally vetting Marco Rubio back in the 2015 presidential selection campaign, saying Rubio got his seal of approval for being a good friend for Israel. And now, of course, as you say, it's intergenerational. Now his son, David Ellison, is in the news because he's the CEO of the new Paramount Skydance monstrosity that is about to become the Paramount Skydance Warner Brothers monstrosity. And I know, basically taking over half of the world's media output, or something like, or half of America's anyway. So it's an intergenerational affair at this point. And actually, it gets even worse because I didn't even mention in that entire hour-long podcast Megan Ellison, who is the daughter of Larry Ellison, and she runs something called Annapurna Pictures, which is some art house studio. So anyway, their media control is almost unimaginable at this point.
Well, here we pulling it up. Paramount Skydance has officially agreed to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery for $110 billion, a couple of dimes here. Following a bidding war, the deal, expected to close Q3 26, will combine major assets including HBO, CNN, CBS, and merge Paramount with HBO Max. This follows the April 22 merger of Warner Media with Discovery. And, it's everybody. Everybody. And, and who gets this? You look at the, chart of all of the different media outlets, like everything. They keep merging. Then another one merges with them and buys out of the merges. And then it's every broadcast media outlet, ever. Under Zionist, Larry Ellison, we like Trump and Iran wars. So I'm really concerned that there's a future plan for us, and I don't know what the opposition is other than just not playing. What if they had a new world order and nobody ordered? I mean, I'm good.
Exactly. Yeah. And it turns out David doesn't fall far from the tree. Has been meeting with Israeli generals and spies as part of their operations and spying on Americans. So, awesome.
Well, they're proud of it too, and they're, they had a Palantir young guy that was on with, I don't know who he's being interviewed by, and I was watching that, and Palantir makes the argument, we want to have all this, like after 9/11, there was all this data, but they weren't able to, find out who did what. Nobody was in charge, and I think that's why they created Director of National Intelligence. That was Tulsi Gabbard's position. That was post 9/11, I think, that they did that, and it was supposed to be coordination of all this stuff. Well, Palantir comes out, we want to make sure we can find all the terrorists, but we want protections against non-surveillance of the American people.
Yep.
Pinky swear. Mm-hmm. So we have to anticipate they're going to track everything they can because they can, and who's going to stop them? We have William Benny. I've had him on several times. He was the NSA guy that was going, look, they're turning all this inside on America. This is, he whistle blew on that, so, he's persona non grata now. So this is, what if you knew? What if you knew they were going to do this? What if you knew they're going to track everything? What if you knew they were going to know everything that you know? What if you knew? Then what? James? What?
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, that's the question for all the marbles. And I don't know if you saw it, but or if this is what you're referring to, but yeah, Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, had just this deranged, unhinged interview recently where he's literally like getting out of his chair with excitement, talking about how Palantir kills people, and our AI technology is being used in war zones, and we're killing people that need to be killed, and just crazy, just bloodlust in his eyes. But then again, he did seem absolutely coked out of his mind or on something. I don't know. These are the people at the top. But again, yeah, we know that. So yeah, what do we do about it? That's the question.
Well, I'm asking you.
Yeah. Well, again, it's nothing that we haven't talked about before, but for people who are tuning in who haven't listened to us before, yes, it is about personal self-sovereignty and declaring that and claiming it and staking it out. And how do you do that? And that's why I think occupied land is an important idea that people should be thinking about.
It's really just self-sustaining autonomy of freedom, and just how do you get free? Live free. How about that?
Yeah.
I vote that.
Yeah.
And not turn over your children, to them. And then the biggest thing that I really noticed a lot about my own state of mind, my personal health, my relationships, it's food. And we were being poisoned. I mean, even we kind of knew. We're like, if I tell my grandkids, if it's in a Mylar bag or a plastic, inside a cardboard box, it's, toxic waste. Yeah, just say it. Pull it off the shelf. It's toxic waste. If you didn't pick it, grow it, do it, get organic, whatever, it's toxic waste. Well, for fun, my kids always getting me some toxic waste trinket and trash they find somewhere, whatever. But, it's becoming more and more obvious as we clean up our food and be careful about our supplements and what we do and don't eat. Donna's garden, everything. It clears your mind. It increases your energy a little bit. It does. And that's what I think has been going on. There is a dial. They, them, those know what it is. It's whatever chemical in the air, the water, the food, the mRNA, backs to your lettuce or whatever the hell they're doing. If they can dial you down just a little bit, there's a threshold. There's a tipping point of, no, I'm not doing that. No, it's not my self-interest. No, you piss me off. No, you're threatening my family. No, they want to take out the no's. And to do that, they need to weaken your will a little bit, your outrage, your now, they want you to be offended in the right way.
Of course, yeah.
Of course I gotta have blue hair. So this is I always see humanity keeps marching on. We come back. We always see the existential extinction level threat and we react. But what if they changed humans? What if they dialed you down just a little too much? Now some people can't be dialed down, or they logic and reason their way through it.
Yep.
So that's why Libertas.Earth, the philosophy of liberty, self-ownership thing, is so important, I think, to me, important enough that I can't not do it. And James is on board. A lot of people are on board. People that have been affected by this are on board. We're going to do it, and you can be on board. The audience, it's simple. I made it simple. Click forward, click send, click PDF, click download, click print on your printer, click go make 100 copies, click, 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 in any language around the world. And your excuse is what? What do we do? This. You come up, anybody says, I don't know what this. Just like the evolution. It's all about self-ownership. So enough about that, but that's the reasoning. So the Ellison thing, what I got out of that when I watched that is really what scared me more than anything else is not that Larry is going to get outed and this will go bad. It doesn't matter. The next generation is going to pick it up wherever it's left off, dust it off, do it again with unlimited gazillions of dollars of money and a CIA contract. So I'm like, what to do?
Yeah.
I don't know anything else.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right about that. Yeah, that's the problem sometimes when you cover people like this. People will be like, oh, it's this person, and this is the person that we now need to focus on. And yeah, to a certain extent, but until such point as the rest of the oligarchical class decides they don't need that person to do what they want anymore, and then they can write them out of the script, like an Epstein or what have you. So, yeah, it's not about Ellison himself being particularly important in the global scheme of things. It's about what he represents and the class that he represents. So I think we need the consciousness of that in order to understand we're not fighting against this particular individual. We are fighting against more the idea and the ideology that he represents.
Yeah, what's the biblical phrase? Princes and principalities, or something. I mean, we're going up against a concept. They want their front seat in hell. They're lobbying for their stripes of something. How many baby hearts they got to eat? And you think I'm kidding? I had Melody Krell on before she started doing her shows, and she was inspired to do that. And I'm going, she's an actress, Hollywood, kind of started uncovering a lot of the spirit cooking and all that crap. And I'm going, seems like it's a religion. She goes, that's exactly what it is. They actually worship as evil intent of evil to get their, and they're rewarded for something. And it's just to think that these people exist is, not too far-fetched, but they're such small numbers. And what makes them effective is they're willing to do any and everything. That's the difference. We're not. And when you get, it's wartime, they come after your survival and your family and so on. That's when, grandma, grandpas, and men, get up and go, hell no. Now, you just killed the person I was. I'm not that anymore. It's eye of the tiger, and here we come, and we're so much more of us. So
you make a good point that I don't make often enough, but that's that there's a lot that we can learn from these oligarchs and the way they operate, because obviously they are quite successful, and they are powerful in the sense that they can enact agendas. They have the stick-to-itiveness. There's a lot that we can learn. Like, just as an example, they tend to circle the wagons and protect their class interests when they get threatened, whereas often we form a circular firing line and start firing at each other. Right?
Well, they encourage that, and that's one thing that I learned in my activism. I never targeted an individual. I mean, I run for U.S. Senate against John McCain during the Iraq War. I mean, I got to have me some fun on that one. But that, I didn't mention him. I didn't care. What was I going to do? Win, Anytime that I run these campaigns, it's never an individual. Because if you do that, and I got plenty, Sheriff Arpaio, Janet Napolitano, all the congressmen, McCain, I mean, there was plenty for me to go after. But I never did because it was a waste of time. And they circle the wagons, and man, you're not allowed. They come after you. But if I go after what they're doing, the principle, what they're violating, what, the kind of people the people that say this or do that or whatever, that I get away with. What are they going to do? If they come after me, then you're that person he was describing. That's why you went after him. So this is why the philosophy of liberty thing, I already know what's going to happen. It's just like with the Levolution, Safe Second Amendment for Everyone, Freedom's Phoenix, the show, Pirates, all the stuff that we've done has success because any success, it doesn't matter what you do, it's just, how well it works. And you always do the right thing. It's always the right thing, and some of them take off. And the reason is because there isn't anything else to do. What are you going to do? Shoot them? You got your space ion cannon of whatever the hell. You are not going to beat them on their field with their referees, with their sportscasters, and their media. You're not going to do it. So stop. And bitching about it didn't do you any good either. I mean, what if they had a new world order and we didn't apply? What about that? What if we had our alternative, which is why they had to go after the cryptos. That's why they have to go after the internet. That's why they have to go after the alt media. That's why. And whenever we come up with a creative way to get around and do and that's why I do signs. Sign everywhere, a sign, some bitch. You can't stop 100,000 cars going under underpass during rush hour traffic. Now, they get a drone and shoot you off the overpass now, but, so you got to be careful you're not fighting the last war. But, it's like the White Rose Society. Nazi Germany. You got the Skoll brother and sister. They're just printing up flyers. Oh, hell no. They had a trial and execution in what, a day or three? It's just, we're up against evil, James. Yep. Evil. Yep. And we have to put on the armor of God or whatever and go whip some ass. Well, they just need some inspiration sometimes. And I think it's time. I can feel it. I've been doing this for 40 whatever years. I have never felt the tension, the pressure against they, them, those won't leave us alone more than now. Mm-hmm. And with this Iran thing, when they did that, I don't think people really anticipated that. No. I think that they thought Trump's just blustering and blubbering and doing his Greenland thing. Then he does Venezuela. Then he does that, and now you got Ellison's out there buying all the media and everything, and HBO and CNN. Oh my God! And here we go. So I'm here we go. Well, I'm glad I'm in the desert, and I don't know how glad you are in the sunny climes of Western Japan. I don't know how insulated you are. What's
the oil-deprived China bordering climes of Western Japan. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's the mindset there? Are people building bunkers? I mean, what are they doing?
Yeah, well, there's a number of things going on here, one of which is inflation, because as you know, Japan has been not stagflating, just completely stagnant for 30 years. Since the busting of the bubble in the early 90s, there's just been nothing happening economically and zero inflation. Banks, And the Bank of Japan has had a 2% inflation target. They've wanted to get inflation going for all these years, couldn't do it, couldn't even with negative interest rates, couldn't get it going. But now that the world's falling apart and now that the yen is falling apart, suddenly we've got, don't worry, guys, we've got plenty of inflation. And so that's starting to eat into people's pocketbooks. And then you've got all the Iran war and other economic disturbances on the horizon. And then throw in China and North Korea into the mix. And people are definitely changing their moods here. And I would go from saying a couple of decades ago that it's, Japan is essentially a pacifist country and people are generally pacifist, to I think people are more and more thinking, rah, we got to start building up the military. And so we see that with the election of the new prime minister, the first female prime minister, yay, who's also, of course, quite a war hawk and is trying to build up the
war
the
against what? What did she want to war against?
Well, ... China, presumably. So there was a huge brouhaha in last year. I think it was before she actually officially became prime minister, but at some cabinet meeting, there was some question about what would Japan be willing to do if China invaded Taiwan, and she said what you're not allowed to say. Of course, everyone knows it, but you're not allowed to say it. Like, yes, we would be willing to militarily defend Taiwan or whatever, something like that. And so China freaks out, and now it's raising the war specter even further over here.
So what did she say? She said she's going to defend Taiwan?
Yeah, it was something along the lines of Japan would be willing to militarily defend Taiwan. Something along those lines. And I don't know how she phrased it, but she didn't use the magic words you're supposed to use, which is strategic ambiguity, like, we won't say what we can and can't do and whatever. She just said,
they have China with their surveillance ships, tracking everything U.S., and then, of course, sharing it with Iran, and China's not getting their oil through the Straits of Hormuz. That's one thing. The United States, the drill baby drill or whatever, we're surplus oil in North America. And it always had the capability, and they just, whatever. It's all BS. But we have the oil, but the price still goes up. And I'm going, the price is going up a lot. Woo! Who's making the money? Is it because there's a shortage here? No, because they can. They spike it up.
Well, it's also about refineries, and of course, the climate nonsense for the past few decades has been has essentially shut down or stopped new refinery construction all of that because
well, they shut them down in California.
Mother Earth.
You know, a lot of people don't know. Los Angeles County there's a bunch of oil wells. You ever go there? There's oil wells everywhere. They had refineries and everything. They make them some money. No, we're not going to, no. And I'm going, you guys are so stupid. Well,
not in California.
I have no idea what Newsom knows that we don't. There's something else going on. You can't be that stupid, And then you got Mondami. Was it Mondami? Is how you say? Whatever, the mayor of New York guy. We have a story. One of his staff members is up there calling for a holy war. Ran against the U.S. I'm like, seriously, seriously. So this is. I don't see this being sustainable. But if there was a civil war, it would be who against whom? I mean, what we fight? It'd be a short one, but I don't see people.
I know exactly how it would play out. It would be the blue-red thing, and people would rally MAGA versus the wokesters, and that would be it. And it's stupid, but that's the way it would go.
That's how they want it to go. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. If it eventuates, if they manage to actually get it to that point.
I want to pull up that Mondami thing because that was just super stupid. What is some of the super? I looked this up. Give me some super stupid. What's some of the super stupid news like you and Pilato are going on about, or you have like your Dino Awards, you got your your predictions.
Yeah.
There's some super stupid out there. What's stupider? Well, maybe not as stupid as Iran, but I mean, some super stupid.
And calling it holy war, that's that's the fun part. But that reminds me of back in 2001, 2002. There was some point at which Bush, called the war on terror a crusade, and that became a big talking point because if you're talking about the Crusades, and that brings back the Christians versus the Muslims and all that.
Well, that was a story here recently. They had a was that what you're talking about? They said recently a holy war. We're going against it. This is a Trump thing just here recently. Was that what you were talking about?
No, I thought you mentioned that Mamdani people had put out some kind of press release.
Oh, no, but I was thinking, from the White House. No, I'm putting this here. Let me get this up here.
But I know the story that at least some people in the military have said that their commanders were telling them that this is essentially a war to bring back Jesus or something like that.
Okay, this is alert. You guys see this. Zoran Mandami's intern. Okay, so I guess he's an intern. Arzo Malik is publicly calling for a holy war through jihad and martyrdom. So this is, okay, we'll just give it a few seconds here.
The true believer knows that none of this is in vain, that this is all jihad, that this is all ibadah, and that this is all counted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the conversation of doxing, the conversation of getting arrested and suspended, I think it's time for Muslims to start to say, all right, so what? Do what you want. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, because it's about time to do that. And I know everybody has their own families and has an education and everything. It's just a question. We don't want to get doxxed, and we don't want to get suspended, and we don't want to get arrested. How gangsta are you? That's just my question. How much are you willing to do it? And I know everyone has their own risk levels, but at the end of the day, that's a question.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
How committed am I to this? To what extent of my personal
that's the question. To what
gains am I willing to sacrifice for this bigger noble cause? And subhanAllah, I truly
what are you,
believe
George Bush? What noble cause?
If you get suspended, if you get doxxed, because it's bound to happen when you're doing a righteous cause and when you're doing something for the sake of Allah here in the West, it will never ever be in vain. And the true believer does not fear that, because the true believer knows that the akhirah is a promise.
So what is she calling for exactly? Like rising up against the U.S.?
I have no idea.
Or what?
Jihad against the man or something.
Yeah, okay.
Open up a can of whip ass. It's but what's interesting is this is part of the cabinet, or the administration of the mayor of New York. And you got Muslims, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to go, yeah, what are you going to do? Where are you? You're just calling for everybody else to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
hey, why don't you guys go and do this thing?
Yeah, and I'll, and you'll get the golf clap. I'm really not a sit on my hands guy. I've been through a lot of stuff over the last 40 whatever years. And it has been somebody's got to do something, and I'm a somebody, so we do something. And what I've learned over the period of time, the only thing that really lasted, that went election to election to election, that got passed down to generation next, was just principle, understanding, general public opinion, James Corbett documentaries, okay? That's why I'm so supportive of the work that you do, because where the hell else do you get, meet the Ellisons, meet Bill Gates, the century of enslavement? Where else? Who's that? Wait, we're going to get it on one of the broadcast media outlets that Ellison bought? That was going to happen? CNN's going to go all truth now? It's like, oh, this is so... And I don't know where it goes in the short term, but I know where it goes long term. Humanity marches on. We always ratchet towards more freedom, but with technology, they get more and more tools to enslave us. But we make use of it. You're going to see, I think of Aaron Day's videos that he's producing with AI. Have you gone and seen any of his stuff?
I have not.
Freaking awesome. Movies, music videos, songs. He's running for U.S. Senate against Sununu in New Hampshire. That's going to be fun. He's like, he doesn't worry about he's going to win. Woo, but he's going to have him some fun, So they have to go after this general public opinion attack that they don't count on. And it's just, but CNN said, Larry Ellison said, and Israel said, but, here it comes. And it's so overwhelmingly obvious. What do you think the percentage needs to be to know what's up? And how many do you think of Americans or North America, the world percentage, knows that they're being lied to and bullshitted all the time? It's got to be more than it was 20 years ago. I mean,
it's got to be, yeah. I would go that far out on the limb. It's obviously not enough because, it still looks like the same stuff's taking place. So I'm not going to try to put percentages on this. But, at a certain point, so I think ultimately the ultimate social engineering goal is to engineer us into a system where our consent doesn't actually matter. And I think we're almost there. We're getting there. Because at a certain point, wars are always waged on the back of, at the very least, us shipping our sons and daughters off to die in some foreign battlefield. But, less and less necessary as fewer and fewer people are needed to operate the autonomous drone weapons that are, going to be the next phase of military warfare, etc. So we're at the point where they don't need us as much as they used to. And that's really the worrying point, because what's their calculus? Oh, let's keep around, billions and billions of people that we don't need, or let's have the culling.
This morning I had one of the speakers at Anarchapulco that I really wanted to see. I got pulled away and I couldn't see it, so I wanted to have him on. I was just supported by some revolutionaries that I know that really wanted me to see it. So we did a show this morning. His name's Cal Washington. And it was one of those, you've heard the Freeman, of Montana, and they do their banking thing and they fill out the right paperwork and yada, yada, yada. He's gone through all of that. But what he came up with a unique idea, and in power movement, whatever the heck. And the basic thing is that when you do get an offer from any utility, the government, or whatever, you always counter it. This is what our friend Jay Noon does. He's like, yep, for me talking to you, here's my fee schedule. It's $30,000, and every time you talk to me, and I do, what do they call it, bill of attainder or bill, whatever. So you create this value based on the bad guys do that all the time. Every time you get arrested, you got, this arrest number, this number, it gets traded. It has value. It gets traded on the market. Every, DUI is worth, we're going to make us some money. So it's like debt collectors buying your debt or something. Well, you might get pennies on the dollar, but it's not worth zero, that kind of thing. Well, what he did is he has people build up for months, and they do it in waves. And then all of a sudden, they file and serve Bill Gates. I mean, they serve, whatever. These have value. How much value? Don't know, don't care. They have value because they harmed us. They insisted that we do something, and they're harming us, so we have some recourse. Now, what they did is they take that value and they tokenize it. So now it's a token. Now it's a crypto. Well, what's it worth? Not zero. So I'm just going, okay, that's, some activism. And it was creative, and I was skeptical at first. I'm like, I've heard this stuff before. I get it. But they're using their system against them. And they do the exact same thing, but in a different way. And that's one thing that brings to mind is that the private equity, the private debt, on a lot of commercial loans, like all that's going. And John Snides in Economic Truth has been tracking this, and he goes, this is going to go. You watch. And this has been over the last couple of months. Well, the last week, boom, all this stuff is starting to implode. And it's going to be, that's why I always say it's going to be a food thing. It's going to be availability, the quality, the price, that's even on the freaking shelves. People are motivated by food, which is how they're going to try and control us too. And if they got drones to go fight the wars, what the hell they need us for anyway? So this is where my thought process is. I know you got to go, but I got worked up today, man. I'm talking on rare. And it's happening right before our eyes.
Yeah. Hey, what can we do other than what we can do? And then telling people about what we're doing. You know what I mean? It's going to be up to them what they do with this information. So
I'm so glad you're there, man, doing what you do. You got Ellison thing. What's your next thing? Who else you going to piss off? What else you going to learn to fire us on?
Well, no, now you've put in my mind the idea of, hey, we should be studying what they're doing in order to, I think there are things that we can learn from the they, them, those. But beyond that, actually.
While I'm thinking about it, Tim Picciott, the reason that he paid $17,000 to get out of his broker license thing or whatever to go speak at an Acapulco years ago is he discovered what they were doing and how with crypto we could do it and protect your asset, kind of whatever. He's going, there is a mechanism. There's a club. We ain't in it, but we can create our own club. So it's kind of this stuff. I would talk to Tim in your research. Make sure you do that because he found a lot of things.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out. But I'll give you and your audience the sneak preview. I am thinking my next podcast will be about this book. It's called The Fight for English. And I don't know what to say other than it's about liberty and about the liberty mindset, but from a very, very, very different perspective than people would ever think about. Even the author of this book probably doesn't think about it necessarily in that way, although there are some things in here that make me think he knows a thing or two. But
okay, let me make a comment and see how far off I am. It is about how words wire your brain to think a certain way.
That is an excellent and important insight. But not this book, no. Let me put it this way. We're against central planners of all sorts, right? Like the commies, like the Nazis. And you hear people referred to as grammar Nazis, right? Well, there is actually something to that. And I'm going to try to tease that out because this is actually a really interesting book along those lines. So I'm against grammar Nazis and other kinds of Nazis.
You got to flush that out a little bit. I'm trying to,
I know.
Make the.
I know. I'm just giving you the sneak preview here. Hopefully, I wet your whistle.
One thing every now and then James, makes me read something. Gosh darn it, Here we had, Meet the Ellisons. Yay, a video that I can do and listen to as I'm working on tractor or whatever. The AI Wars. I had to freaking read it. You know, I'm like,
I'm
damn
sorry.
it, James. You know,
I'm
and
sorry.
that could be into a video too. I mean, you can get some all kinds of whiz bang Skynet stuff. But that was very interesting. Tease that real quick. You know what this is about. I found this very interesting to the point I actually read it.
Well, there you go. Well, essentially, the point comes from my observation that it's often been said that the Spanish Civil War was kind of a preview of World War II. Not only in terms of the ideologies and the people that were fighting, the fascists and the communists and what have you, but the military strategies and the military technology that was previewed in the Spanish Civil War, like the Luftwaffe and the use of planes in warfare, was not something that had happened in World War I. It was something that was going to take over World War II, and that sneak preview was there in the 1930s. And I have a feeling we are seeing the sneak preview of World War III right now because of these types of technologies. So we've got the autonomous drones, autonomous weapons, autonomous robots of various sorts that are now actively being deployed on various battlefields, including Ukraine, but also Iran and Gaza, of course. And I think that is giving us the sense of where this is going. And people, in my audience at any rate, they just hear the AI word and they sort of have the angels dancing on a head of a pin existential debate about what is intelligence and all of this sort of. Meanwhile, you know, autonomous weapon systems are being deployed and actually striking things. So I think, you know, it's a real pressing concern. And it feeds into what I was saying earlier about, you know, at some point they don't need as many soldiers on the ground to do what they're doing.
You know, this is, I think Ukraine, you know, showed us a lot of what was going to happen. There was a movie, Jessica Biel, fighter jet. This was something that was a while ago. Stealth. That was the name of it. Okay. This right here, Stealth, was about an AI fighter jet that they were testing. Okay. How long is this trailer? You know, scary as shit. And when was this thing? Was it say 2005? Okay. 2005. All right. Let's get past all the crap here and let's watch it.
You are pilots of the U.S. Navy. I expect nothing less than perfection.
Gotcha. I bow down before the superiority of the opposite sex in many respects. But from time to time, I believe they should bow down before me.
Please.
You like surprises, Ben? Allow me to introduce the future of digital warfare. Eddie flies all by himself.
You mean itself?
It will replace us all.
Oh, you think they're gonna trade us all in for that machine?
We have things those computers can never have, like instincts and feelings, moral judgment.
What am I supposed to tell all the weeping mothers? That we could have got the job done without sacrificing their sons and daughters, but we decided not to?
It's putting all of our lives at unnecessary risk.
You wanted to be on the cutting edge? This is it.
So it got a lightning strike. It went all freaking postal on them, and it is a very good view into what's happening right now. And at 2005, this is 21 years ago. And, you know, and plus Jessica Biel in bikini, you got that. But the point is that
I was going to say that trailer is very 2005-ish. I could probably date it.
I'm telling you, it was well done, and it gave you a vision. It's predictive programming. They get you ready for this is coming. Why not this? You know, what am I going to do? You know, send a letter, sorry your son died when I could have pushed a button drone thing. And they already do it. The F-47 that's coming out and the new planes have these drone wingmen that they have out in front doing stuff. So when you look at the drones that were being done in Ukraine, you have them doing countermeasures with radio blast of, you know, bringing them down. You can't control it. So they do fiber optic. They got, like spider webs all over the fields out there for them unreeling, kilometer-long fiber optics to control these so they couldn't be taken down. You got Russian soldiers are surrendering to drones, and they had little tanks with, machine guns on them holding off for 6 weeks, a wave of what. It's already happening, and they haven't deployed that yet. And Iran, all they had to do is what I knew they would do, is they just go, no, we're not giving up. You better surrender, unconditional surrender. People rise up against, with what? They don't have any guns. You have the clerics still in charge. They're a big country. Even if you took out, command and control, they're all over the place. This is an unwinnable war. Will Iran win? What define win? It's just going to keep on keeping on. And you got the Israel, the Euphrates to the Mediterranean, greater Israel kind of crap going on. They've told you what they want. You got Ellison with the bottomless pit money, going to do it. We are in for it. We are in for it. I've been seeing it from the ashes. Freedom's Phoenix, and we're going to show some ashes. And they do a mushroom cloud, which I think is what they're trying to avoid. You get a mushroom cloud, of course there's war. I'm already against the next war. Mushroom cloud, that's it. You failed. You're done. What do you say you do here? That was prevent that. Little war to prevent that. They can't have a nuke. They can't. Mushroom cloud, done. In my not-so-humble opinion.
Yep. No, I agree. And I think that's probably the message that we should be hammering home right now. We're already against the next stage of the ongoing, never-ending war.
It's going to be a couple of weeks before we talk again. And prediction before you go, is there going to be a ground invasion by the U.S. on Middle East soil?
I'm not making any predictions now because I wouldn't have even thought they would have pulled the trigger on this. So obviously, I don't know. But I'd like to. The best possible outcome is that Trump does what he always does and chickens out and takes it all back and art of the deal, whatever. We already won. I hope he has the sense to do that. But
we won.
We'll
for the win. We win. Because I said, Erica Kirk's in charge of the Air Force now. I was just all right, we'll call it there. But damn, James, I just got to tell you. You're the best therapy that I have.
I'm glad to be here for that.
Thank you. Because I look forward to just thank you. We go every 2. I go, man. At least I talk to James. I'm not freaking crazy, Yeah. So I'm optimistic about the future, but not for a lot of things. I am for Donna and I. We've taken steps to where we're insulated from this. We can just go dark, but it's it's in our blood to have an impact for the future. We really invested, even before we had children, in our grandchildren. Everything that we did was for grandkids. I earned Papa, man. Grandfather gave you hell yeah. I'm proud of it. But we got to go through this, and you're a big, giant, optimistic beam for me. Thank you very much,
awesome.
James.
Well, that's what it's for. So I'm glad glad that at least one person gets it. Thank you, Ernie.
I think there's a few. Thanks very much. Peace, guys. Keep up optimism. The future is going to be very full of abundance. We just got to get to it. Peace.
Take care.